Hello everyone. Well, I'm going to take a tip from my friend Busan Kevin and talk at the camera a bit while I walk home from work. I had an interesting conversation today with a Japanese friend of mine. We were talking about just various things. We weren't even talking about deep subjects, but we got to this point where he basically listed for me the order of importance in terms of what his life priorities are, what he believed the priorities were. And I wrote them down on my hand because I can't remember them. So let me take a look. Sorry for the jittery camera. He said that the number 1 was character, number 2 was health, number 3 was art, and number 4 was education. So character, health, art, and education. He confided that he thought that most Japanese people would probably put, most other Japanese people would probably put education a little higher on the list. But that's how it stood for him. That was very interesting to me. And we talked about it for a bit, and what was most interesting to me was that there was something missing there that I was surprised that didn't show up on the list, and that was God. So I asked him where he thought God might fit into that list, and he was kind of taken aback by that, in a good way. I mean, like in a startled way, as though it was something that he had missed. And I didn't mean to put him, on the spot or anything like that. I didn't mean to put him into a corner. I was just curious about his thoughts, because coming from the West, from the United States, people make a list like that. You often see God somewhere in the list, usually number 1, something like God, country, family, or something like that. God, family, country. I can't quite remember the stereotypical order that I heard when I was growing up in America, but God was always at the top, and it wasn't in his list at all. So he thought about it for a bit, and after a while he simply said, "I forgot," which was really interesting, and we talked about it for a little bit more, and at one point I suggested maybe God was in everything, in all of it. God was basically implied in the whole list, and he thought he liked that, and I don't think he was latching onto that as a way to make up for the fact that God wasn't in the list. I think he latched onto that because that really did accurately reflect his frame of mind. And the reason that I'm talking to you right now is that I thought that conversation that I had with this gentleman was very illustrative of the way God, or the concept of God at least, exists in the mind of many Japanese. Japan is a very religious country if you look at it in terms of the institutions that exist. Buddhist temples, you can't throw a rock in any neighborhood without hitting a temple in one direction or another, and Shinto shrines especially are everywhere. So at least the symbols of religion are all around. There are many very religious people in Japan. There are very many serious Buddhists. I'm not so sure that there are many Shintoists, as many that are serious at least. And there are some Christians as well as other religions, but especially Buddhists. There's quite a number who take it very seriously. But for the most part, most Japanese basically don't think much about religion, for the most part. They kind of just take it as a part of life. An important part of life, but something that they don't give a lot of thought to for the most part. And the fact that God's existence in that capacity might be implied in and not need to be stated is a ramification of that way of thinking. The fact that my friend would create a list of life priorities that didn't include God doesn't mean that he wasn't thinking about God, or that spirituality is not important to him necessarily, although he probably wasn't thinking about God explicitly. But spirituality is important to this man. I know him very well. He's a very good man, a man of great character, and there is spirituality deep within him. I mean, I don't mean it that way. He's a spiritual man. Whether he is overtly religious or not is beside the point. And so I think that his agreement that God was basically implied in the whole picture was a statement of the fact of his thoughts, not just a way to bring God back into a list from which it was absent. Well, I think you get the point. In Japan, God is an implicit part of life. It is everywhere around us. I'm turning around. God is in the trees and in the bushes, in the flowers, in the ground, in the cars, in the people, everything. Especially if you walk through this country as I do so often, you see signs of God everywhere. God is in the minds and the lives of the people here, although they may not talk about it very much, or express it, or even think about it very much. But it's there. And it's an interesting fact, and it's a big difference compared to the country that I come from, where God is more or less a paramount element of creation, and something to be appreciated and looked up to and thought about explicitly whenever possible. There you go, some thoughts as I walk home about the mind of the Japanese as it relates to God. Take care. Bye-bye.